everyone, and welcome to another round table. Tonight, we are actually going to be having a lot of fun. We're talking about a topic that it's a very important one, if you ask me, and it's one that I honestly can't remember it being talked about anywhere, and that's going to be faith magic. And joining me for this round table, we have Squirrel, aka Halloween, definitely dressed for the season. Thank you for joining us. And below her on my screen, we have Bornoldus. Glad you could join us. And once again, we have Immortal from the Gilded server and newly minted moderator. So welcome, Immortal. Okay, let's start with this topic a little bit on what is faith magic. And before I give the general definition, when you hear this term, what do each of you think of? Born, we'll start with you before you start making strange noises.
I don't know what you're talking about. But when it comes to the idea of faith magic, it's kind of a mixed bag, because some of it, this comes from partially the skeptic background that I end up seeming to fill on some of these talks. But the first thing that comes to mind is just generic prayer, regardless of what that ends up setting in, just putting something into motion, whether it actually comes out or not.
Okay.
And meanwhile, the other side of that is just, for lack of a better term, it's basically causing whatever effect you're going for just by pure desire for it. You have such a strong belief in it that this will occur or has already, that it just happens without ritual setup or any other pomp and circumstance.
Okay. How about you, Immortal?
For me, I think that it's like, really, faith is magic. You're putting intent, you're putting time, energy into your prayers, whether it's for some health, wealth, or anything like that. And then just giving it up, you're supposed to expect it to happen. And for a lot of people, it does. They can say their prayers every night, wish for good health, good day, and it can happen. People get sick, they pray for them, and they get better. People have survived cancer and other terminal illnesses.
Okay, yeah. How about you, Squirrel?
So to me, faith magic is kind of like a blending of like religion with actual like magic as a practice, because magic is a tool separate of what system you throw it into. Because you can put magic in a Christian system, you could put it in a pagan system, you could put it in whatever, and it's kind of the blending of the two. And like the other two have said, it's also the pure blind faith of like, I'm doing this and I'm hoping I'm gonna get a result. And then you get the result, and then you're like, so
Okay.
like,
Actually, you all have hit the mark pretty closely on this one, because over the years, the study of what some would refer to as arcane magic, or just general magic practice as we know it, and faith magic is one that has interested me. And though they have a lot of similarities, there is definitely a point where they are divided. And that larger dividing point is, in standard magic, we work with elements, we work with energy currents that we can harness to power the working we're doing. Straightforward, simple. However, I've noticed and actually tinkered with in faith magic, that's not going to get you much. It's not. And this is actually why, and I will flat out admit this from the get-go, when it comes to actually getting faith magic to work, it's an area of magic I'm just grounded in. I can't really get much out of it. It just falls flat. For everything else I can do in the other categories, this one falls flat. And that's largely because what fuels it is the very thing I've stated on this channel I'm not good at. And you actually need faith to fuel it. That is your fuel.
Right.
And that's a tricky fuel, even for a lot of religious people. I know a lot of religious people who are like, they do the motions, they go through it, they have the religion, but there's a lacking of faith, like a true belief. So they oftentimes can't fuel it as much. But then I have met some of the nicest, most wonderful people who their faith, it's the genuine article. You know what I mean? And you open your arcane senses around this people, you can just see the power of that faith. And for a guy like me, and well, I guess Born, him and I come skeptical to, I think, everything. I've said I need the data. Straight up, I need the data. Many know I actually got into Magick to prove it didn't work. Did a full long year path working to debunk it, and the data did not support my standing. So,
Oops.
Faith Magick is an interesting one because of that need. Now, to that, you guys were correct, and you apply it. It could be a simple prayer that is fueled by genuine faith. It could be a much more intricate working, whether it be a process of prayer or daily rituals, which we see in some religions. Now, one thing I think is important, and I'll let you guys comment. Faith Magick, a lot of people want to relegate it to Judeo-Christian religions only. I say that's a big no. Just straight up. What do you guys think?
I guess I'll start since no one else is volunteering. So
I
before
don't
I'm
want to
thrown under the
interrupt.
bus, I may as well jump in front of it for them.
There we go.
So in terms of relegated purely to that general sect of religion, I think the idea that it would, to put it lightly, bogus. Anywhere that you could apply even a different version of faith, any of that kind of self-assured belief in an outcome, this ideology, this deity, this belief in how the universe works, and it needn't even apply to religion at all. Any kind of heavy belief and that assuredness can evoke this kind of result. So there's nothing that would end up pinning it down to one particular group belief or any other summation of this is how it works blanketly.
Okay. How about you, Halloween?
I very much do not believe Faith Magick is only Judeo-Christian. Because, like, if you look at it, you had, even going back to the Egyptians, they had such pure faith in, like, how things worked. Like, they would, like, mummify themselves on the belief, like, oh, well, the heart is what controls everything. We have to get rid of the brain, otherwise we're not making to the afterlife. And, like, the pure belief and ritual you see even back then that has still so much power. And you look at, like, that ancient culture, like, that's one example where Judeo-Christian, like, you can compare them, but, like, ultimately I would say they have, like, that same level of faith magic. And, like, D&D isn't real magic, but, like, the faith magic of a paladin, like, I believe my oath so strong, I believe this pinky promise so strong, it gave me magic. Like, there are other areas, like, faith magic can be just straight up belief in yourself. Like, I believe in myself so hard I made it rain yesterday. Like, I didn't, but, like, someone may have. Like, it's not specifically a Judeo-Christian. I think it's very applicable to other religious things as well as to people's self abilities and, like, personal beliefs outside of a religion sect.
Okay. How about you, Immortal?
I feel like it's pretty much the same. That it can be anything that you put your faith into. I mean, you can have faith that tomorrow is going to be such a bad day just because it's Monday, and then Monday happens, it sucks.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, there are people who they may even have like Norse runes, and maybe they don't put exactly what other Norse practitioners do into the runes, but they have enough faith into it. They're, they might actually be protected on some level.
No, that's actually a good example as well. Just like the Egyptian example, that's a good example there.
Also,
And
thought forms. If you think about like those, people had so much belief in the flying spaghetti monster, they made a thought form of him.
that is true. That is true.
Like that is just another area. And like
Yeah.
Mothman believes in you, so maybe Mothman got that magic too.
And if you haven't already, check out our roundtable discussion on Mothman.
I love Mothman so much.
The squirrel actually dressed up for that one. So yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you all. And I like how you guys said even outside religion, because we do discuss faith, and faith is usually bundled with religion pretty solidly. And you are correct. Faith in yourself can really help you overcome so many obstacles. Faith in another person. I mean, or like Halloween said, you could have faith in it raining, or like Immortal, you said you could be so dead set and have true faith in the fact that tomorrow is going to be a bad day. You can manifest it.
And to that same point, I actually have a little bit of practical experience with that same branch of it, because there was a while where I tried to do an experiment on something similar. Now, at the time, it was utilizing a practice that I came across that was called assuming, what was it called again? I think it was assuming a god form, or something like that, where essentially you try to embody an ideal of something. You try to embody a concept, similar to how like in other more ceremonial practices, the whole idea of like the ritual and the pomp and circumstance of it all is designed to put you in the mindset of I am a powerful wizard bending reality to my will, or whatever mindset you're getting into. In this particular experiment, I tried to utilize the idea of no matter what goes wrong, no matter how bad things get or what comes up, the whole this too shall pass kind of thing. No matter what, give it a little bit of time. This is not going to be a problem. It'll take care of itself, or you might have to put a little bit of work into this. But one way or another, it's not there.
No.
And during a lot of that work, if anything had popped up, let's say a friend of yours has a bad financial circumstance, or you're shortchanged on rent, or any kind of thing that would pop up that would just dampen, ruin a day, or be something you have to deal with, most of the time ended up resolving themselves within the day, even for some of the more extreme versions.
That's a good use for it, straight up.
I can't remember why I fell off of that, but
you got distracted.
As I tend to.
So, okay, here's another one I get asked about when this topic does come up. And do you have to choose arcane or faith magic? Or can you overlap? Immortal?
I do both. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I was raised Lutheran. My church is actually like 5 minutes down the street from me, so I haven't been there in years. So there's certain things like I feel like protection, things for health. I absolutely pray to God, the archangels and everything. But there's certain things I'm like, I need a little bit more. I think that I want to take more control over it and manifest more of what I want instead of just generally. And so I just do both. I have no problem whatsoever.
No, I agree. They're both doable. They really are. So yeah. Squirrel?
Well, everyone in this chat is well aware that this one has been a year-long journey for me. Because call it black and white thinking or whatever you want. So I was raised Catholic. I had some religious trauma happen in my teenage years because sometimes people in faith can be really mean. And whether they had these ones, I think, did have good intentions, but they still ended up hurting me very badly. And I left the church and I picked up magic and I've been doing magic since. And then now I'm trying to come back to the fact where it's like, up until that point in my life, I thought this was the way I was going to be. And now this is the way I'm going to be. I'm trying to merge them back together. So I am actively in the process of trying to merge faith magic as well as like religious magic back to my regular arcane craft. And like that has been like I've been studying the Bible again this year. I've been like actually working on praying and like dealing with that kind of thing because like it's really hard, but I don't have to have, oh, well, I'm only this because the Christians were mean to me, and or I'm only a Christian and I have to give up the witchcraft. I'm trying to blend them, which has been you can ask Drake. There's been some crying, there's been some screaming, there's been some throwing fits and not practicing either for a few weeks because shit was going crazy.
Hey,
So
I'm glad my time teaching in the church and seminary training has been able to help with this bridging that gap, though.
yeah. But like part of the gap that we perceive in it is something we put in it ourselves. And bridging that gap has to come from within, but you can do both.
Yeah.
Is ultimately.
I like how you said that because I've not thought of it before, but in a way, it's almost a form of shadow work and self-healing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you have to separate an experience with a person or a group of people from something that isn't the person or people. And that's not easy. That really isn't.
And then
I sort through that one myself.
Yeah. And then same to the point, as you brought up, a lot of people view them as entirely separate. When, I mean, when you look at it, at face value, it's really not. They're not really a separate thing, but a lot of people will put them into separate categories, whether it's for a specific belief, whether it's you're a D&D nerd and you're used to wizard and cleric being two separate classes. In most mediums, you see the two as entirely separate things, branched off by however many walls between them. But in all reality, some could say it's two sides of the same coin. Some could say it's the same face on the same coin.
Yeah. Actually, in preparing for this, I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I was like, it's going to be an interesting discussion because I think everyone on this chat has more faith than me because I'm just a faithless bastard. And I got the weirdest look, and I was like, what? He's like, I don't view you as faithless. He's like, hell, your channel's Working Dragon Mystic. You do realize a mystic's essentially an arcane divine blending concept. I was like, I didn't mean that when I picked the name. Because anyone who knows the name knows it was essentially a sarcastic joke before Working Dragon Mystic came around. But he pointed out that though I may not have faith in certain aspects like religion or even the ability to just jump in and pray to an entity that I don't know, that I haven't built that relationship, he's like, you have the most ungodly ability to put faith within your friends that he's like, I am a religious man and I couldn't do that. So I've never considered it. But he might be onto something there. Now, how can I pull? I mean, I can't really, pray to squirrel for health or something, I guess, but
you can pray to squirrel for chaos.
That you can.
I mean, he had a valid point. That's actually, I'm not gonna lie, it's something I've been thinking about and everything because many of you know I've continued this concept of my personal stance with faith because, as I said at the start of this, faith magic's something I've just not been able to harness the juice for. But that being said, I mean, I think it was Immortal was one of the first ones to mention prayer. No, might have been more notes. Anyway, I do do prayers on occasion to Odin or Frey. I've just never I don't know if those would be considered faith because, well, I've worked with them so long, it's more like just a phone call more than anything. But then that raises the next question that a lot of people watching this is probably either screaming at the computer already because we've not addressed it. And that's okay if you are. But how do you define faith? That's a tricky word for a lot of people. Now, for me, I was born and raised within Southern Baptist Christians. I actually taught in Assemblies of God for a while. So I've been in and out of churches of all kinds, but I was taught that faith is unconditional, blind love and trust within whatever it is you're having faith in. And that's really hard for me. So with that in mind, I'm curious, how do you all view that word? Immortal?
It's kind of difficult because you could say I have faith that tomorrow, it's going to be sun shining. Even newsmates say it, it's not. But you can also have faith that, today I can walk down the street and I'm going to see a lot of people. I'm going to meet a lot of people. And you do. It's weird. And I don't know. It is hard to explain because I can say that I have, complete faith that there is something that made all of us and everything. Do I have faith in a lot of the theories about that? No.
Yeah, that's fair. Ronaldus? And this is a tricky question because we use the word, we throw it around, and we have like this abstract ideal, but when we're actually point blank said, what does faith mean to you? It's like, well,
right. And it's the same thing as like the question I think we had talked about outside of some of the roundtables, like what is will? We have several discussions in like all across Magick, what is will, but it's something hard to define. I think the closest summation I can come up with for faith, and it kind of goes back to what I described earlier with the experiment I ran, is it is, whether self-instilled or instilled in you, a sense of complete assurity, a sense of certainty that just, I don't want to say can't be shaken because that isn't it.
I think all of us are proof that at some point it can be shaken.
It can be, and that's the hard part. Is it's
ponder on that because you just said something that like you just set my brain going down a whole line of thought.
Because technically, spell work requires this to a small extent, at least. Because like an analogy I've used with spell work in the server, when it comes to any working you're doing, you have your intent set, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the energy, you're shaping this how you want, right? And then you're letting it go. That action of letting it go and just letting it do its work is, I've used the analogy of, all right, I have the grenade, I've pulled the pin, the spoon's flied, I've thrown the thing, I'm waiting for the boom. One way or another, something is going to explode over there.
And he just
baneful magic works the same way. Like you have to have faith in your baneful magic, otherwise that shit ain't working.
Yeah,
right.
Because if you doubt your baneful magic for a second,
right, and the same thing comes with faith. It's an assurity that I have done the step, or I have, the notion that this is going to happen one way or another. This is true. Even if it hasn't happened yet, it is still true in the now.
So how would you define it?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Faith to me, it's kind of like I said earlier, a blind trust in what you currently think you know or actually know, or a hope you know kind of thing. Like born with the grenade. You like, I trust my friend, I have faith in my friend that they're gonna do this. And like you reacting to me like, ah yes, Halloween's probably about to be 5 minutes late because they're almost always 5 minutes late. I have faith that they're going to do that. Like everywhere I go. And just like having that just sense of trust in the unknown, where it's like I feel like I have enough data that it will probably happen, but I have this trust that it's going to happen based on these other things. Like I have data to this point and I'm extrapolating my end result
Okay.
based on what I currently know.
No, that makes good sense. That makes good sense. But Born, I have to give you credit because you got me thinking about something. I'm after this roundtable, I'm going to be taking this and putting this down in my research notes and going down a whole new rabbit hole with this. And considering my generation, I don't know why this didn't hit me sooner.
Look
But
at you
you
go,
mentioned
Born.
will, right?
Mm.
Okay. When we talk about will in arcane magic, we're talking about our will. What's the will that we're going to shape things to? And most practitioners will even talk about, when spiritualists talk about higher self or a higher will, we almost laugh because then, well, from my perspective, magic's pointless if your will is not your own to begin with, right?
Right.
Okay. We use the word faith, but honestly, when people, and I mean, actually, all three of you described it. When what you're doing when you're looking to an entity, a being, or something outside yourself to put your faith in, to ask for help or get assistance with life or help you get past the bad day, you're literally letting go of the situation, putting it in their hands and trusting them that they're going to do what's best for you, even if you don't know what that is. And I say my generation because I come from, oh God, it was high school or after where there's this song, Jesus Take the Wheel. I mean, the memes and jokes aplenty, let's be honest. But the concept was, life is crazy. I'm done. I'm going to continue, but you're in the driver's seat now. And that I honestly have to think, I think that's where I trip up the most. Because the idea of anyone telling me what to do or steering my ship drives me batty. I'd rather go down in burning flames, screaming, at least it's my own problem, at least it's my fault, than to trust someone. Like I don't care who it is, you put me in the passenger seat of a car, there are very few people you will not see my leg hitting a phantom brake like I'm a driving instructor.
Yeah, and you haven't even ridden with me all that much.
I've drove behind you. That was enough. That was enough.
My best friend Lindsay says she fears for her life every time she gets in a car with me, but I haven't killed her yet, so she keeps on getting in the car with me.
I mean, what do you all think about that? Because that's a perspective that Bourne's comment brought, and you'd figure after all these years I've been through all the perspectives, but you're right, because will is what we say fuels arcane magic. It's your will, right?
Right. And having thought about that a little
faith is
bit
more about putting your trust and belief in someone else is going to take care of it.
Right. Because it's almost like, and I struggle with the wording for this because it's probably going to tweak later on down the line, or someone will come up with a better version of it. But when it comes to a comparison of faith and will almost seems like the drive and the action, the driving force of a person's choice, personality, their universal motivation, whatever you want to call that. And it's the fuel to have something be so, have something be true, or make something true. And faith is is almost the trust that change or that ideal or that thing is true, or something along that line. Like I said, might tweak that in the future to make it make slightly more sense. But
Yeah, I mean, we opened a whole new door here, at least for me, so I got a lot of tweaking. That sounds bad.
right.
But
Tweaking drink.
oh, they gave me a tick the other day. They really did. Immortal, how about you? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking first, don't just let Jesus take the wheel because you're gonna crash. But like
That was one of the jokes.
it-
Every time you see somebody on
He
the
never
road,
learned how to drive.
every time you saw someone on the side of the road back then, it'd be like, "That's not what they meant."
I mean, maybe that's what they meant when they made the Tesla, but at the same time, that didn't work out every time.
No,
J-Man's going for bonus points.
But like, it's difficult. I mean, do you just like give up on everything? I mean, there's people that are like, you know what, I'm gonna keep smoking, and then I'll let God just decide if I'm gonna get cancer and die from it or not. Like, really, that's probably not smart. Because you're not even putting like intent into what you want to happen. You're just like, you know what, whatever's gonna happen has happened, and it will. If you're just
I
gonna let
love
the
that you
chaos
bring
happen.
that up, because I mean, when I was in the church, that was something that was discussed. But weirdly, this is a discussion I had with Freya, and Freya was sharing with me her favorite parable-like story for faith in Jesus, which weird conversation. I don't know how we got there, but she was talking about the one where it's raining. They're being told to evacuate the town. It's okay. Jesus will take care of me. Water comes up. The guy's on his roof. It's okay. Jesus will take care of me. Water comes up a little more. Helicopter comes by. He's literally climbed to this chimney at this point. It's okay. Jesus will take care of me. Water comes up. He drowns. He wakes up in heaven. He's like, Jesus, why didn't you help me? He's like, well, I sent a bus, I sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter. What more you want me to do?
I love that parable.
And that's something that some people forget. I mean, whether it be Jesus or the gods of any pantheon, they don't always just walk down and boop, on the forehead and everything's fine. And you have to be willing to take the action yourself with it.
Right.
And I can remember, well, crap. During one of my darker times after I'd left the church, there's not a lot of times, and Squirrel and Fornoldus know this, where I run out of the ability to push, where my tanks, my reserves are genuinely 100 fucked. Because even when my energy levels, my well-being, everything is tapped out, I still have a large supply of spite.
That you do.
My life where I genuinely hit empty, full on. There was nothing in the husk left. And I made that very well known to Odin, and was like, man, I got no more. I got no more. I clearly heard his voice and felt his hand on my shoulder. And the words, it's okay. We got this. And as screwed up as that whole situation is, and it's more than I can get into here, that very simplistic response not only gave me the motivation to drag myself off the floor where I was at the time, which had I not dragged myself off the floor could have been bad.
You don't got the knees for that anymore.
That's not wrong. That's not wrong. But you get through, finish that day, and over the next week, completely course correct. And I unfortunately have to say the argument that is actually I let go. I gave it to Odin, and that could be looked at as a measure of faith, even though I think he's earned that trust in my mind. But then there's that wobbly definition of faith that everybody has trouble with.
Well, and that's one thing too, is that faith doesn't necessarily have to be unearned. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing to say you can't have faith in something that's been a repeated occurrence, or something. I mean, like you had said earlier, Halloween. If you have a repeated history of showing up late to a specific event that I won't mention specifically, D&D.
Hey, even at work, we have a 7-minute leeway either way where you're still counted on time. So my supervisor does not start meetings till 7 after because he knows I'm showing up at 5 after because I won't get in trouble.
But that same thing applies. Just because it's a repeated occurrence doesn't mean you can't have faith that continues.
Yeah, faith isn't always positive either. Like it's
Yep.
just you're extrapolating data based on what you already have of data.
Which
You
yeah.
see, I am here, 5 minutes late every day. You're gonna have faith. I'm probably gonna be 5 minutes late tomorrow, and you'll be pleasantly surprised I'm on time. But I'll probably be 5 minutes late tomorrow.
Okay.
And
I
that
actually showed up on time today. I was the first one in this
Okay,
meeting
guys, you got
today, and
me
I surprised
thinking of
all of
something.
us.
I think everyone here knows I'm an old gambler. So I need you three to break it down, explain this to me. Because
437.
Okay. What you guys are explaining, I would call that you just know the odds. Because
Is
there's
that
like
not
a
also a
90%
part of
chance
faith?
Halloween's going to be late, but you're also calling that faith. Would knowing the odds, predicting the odds, be a version of faith? And if so, how would you explain that to this old warhorse who calls himself a faithless bastard?
And a gambler at that. I mean, you're looking at the odds. You trust your odds. You trust the math you did. Like you're betting on horses. This horse has the best odds of winning. You're trusting that horse is probably going to win. So you're putting your faith in that horse.
Where does that differ from the data?
Hmm?
How's that differ from data? Because I do follow data.
See, that's probably the gray area, because other than the fact of following the odds, I mean, let's say two people go into it. One person's followed that horse's career. They've seen where they do well, where they do badly. They see the condition it's in currently, and make a guess as to what's going to happen based on that data. You have a second person who's just coming into it fresh and is like, that one, I like that one, and they pick the same horse. Is the person who's just coming in blind and trusting that, basing it on just blind faith? Is the person who's following the data basing it on just data, or is there some measure of faith in there? And this also goes back to that thing I mentioned earlier, where there's the idea of the creating the change with will, and then the trusting that change is there with faith. Following the odds, how far does that interplay go? As my following the odds, that will to make sure an outcome comes true in my favor, and then trusting that my data is correct.
Interesting. I will have to meditate on that one for sure. That's a curveball.
Yeah, because there is always going to be a measure of blind faith to some extent or another with people who just choose at random.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, not gonna lie, I would probably choose a horse with the cutest name because that's who I am as a person. But
I
like,
don't doubt that.
I know this for
you've seen me in D&D, you've seen me in person. Like, that's who I am.
Immortal, do you have a thought on this?
You could say that, like, I mean, say we're playing roulette and you're going to pick red or you're going to get black. Like, you got faith that it's going to be one or the two. And you've seen it hit the other one more. So you're like, all right, I got faith. This time it's going to be this one. And then you can get black. Or the next time you're like, okay, it's going to happen again. And you could die. I mean, it's very unpredictable. You can put a lot of faith into it, but it's weird because then you can have somebody who can pick the same one. You're like, oh, it's not even going to hit that anymore. And they're like, oh, no, it's going to hit this. And then they win. So it's like at that point, did you lose faith and then it backfired and then they gained from it?
Fair point. Fair point.
There's also an aspect of faith having to be tested at some points too. I mean, like looking biblically, like Moses having to spend like so many days in the desert, like, and testing his people's faith in him that he's going to be able to lead them out of this desert. Like, are they putting their faith in him and in the God? Like, is he going to be able to get us out of here? And like Moses not losing faith helped him lead them, but the people who lost faith got punished. So like at some point, faith isn't always going to necessarily give you the thing you need.
Yeah.
Kind of like, what is it? The path of least resistance to some extent. But at some point, you do need resistance to test the strength of a bond.
Yeah, I mean, look at the laws of magic and the two laws of attraction that opposites attract, as do like attracts like. The whole point is there that something is going to have to put adversity to you at some point. That's how you grow. That's how you develop. And I would agree with that. You're correct. Faith does have to be tested. And at this point in time in my life, perhaps I failed that test. Though now you guys are throwing curveballs at me that it's like my faith has been tucked over here in a deck of cards and I just didn't realize it. And now I'm going to have to ponder down that little crazy rabbit hole.
So maybe you aren't as faithless as you believe you have been.
Maybe
Also,
not.
not gonna lie, when you said roulette, I was expecting like Russian roulette, and I was like, "What are you talking about, red and black?" At some point, like the bullet's in there, like you're just counting right.
God, we're getting flagged on this one.
It works too. You're right.
What the hell are you talking about?
No, he's talking about casino roulette with the table and the spinning.
It's gambler.
But yeah, so okay, we've covered quite a few things, and this actually, I'm really anxious to hear some of the responses we get from this, because this may be a topic we visit again, whether it be here or on Locals or the Rumble. Is there anything about this topic that each of you feels needs to be talked about that you're thinking of? Squirrel, we'll start with you.
I feel like we can explore a little bit with faith within religion. Faith magic and religion versus faith magic outside of religion. I also love the gambling rabbit hole we went down. So like, how does faith play into like people who try so hard for the lottery, people who are gambling, people who are betting on these things outside of a religious or regular magical context? How does faith play into that? I think would be a cool to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was meaning tonight before we close out. If you
Then no.
Yeah.
But yeah, write those down and actually stick those in an admin section or something, because you're right, those could take a while.
They could.
And we have unlocked a whole reservoir of ideals here tonight that I did not realize this was going to do.
And keep in mind, for everyone tuning in, this has been a topic that we've discussed off and on, but a lot of what's popped up here tonight has largely been pulled out of our keisters. Yeah. So this there's some stuff you only really pull together.
I will admit,
when you're talking about it,
the men and women I know who, like, when you open your arcane senses, you can just see that raw power of true faith. Those are people who their faith has been tested and they have weathered every storm on the way. And I have so much respect for those men and women that I know.
And the same thing, those people tend to also have some of the strongest wills as well.
They do.
That's why I think
many a times that they would make great magicians. It's just not their cup.
That's why I think there's a really heavy interplay between will and faith. There has to be. Because especially the thing is, if you can find will, there's nothing to say you can't find faith. The trouble is finding where you can apply it. Because, like for yourself, you have only really found you can really trust and rely on data. Well, what's to stop that being your avenue of trying to apply it?
It's a fair point.
And in some aspects, have you been already? Because it's not something like most spell work where it's like I am actively pulling in and shaping it and releasing it or drawing a sigil for this thing. It's something that happens in some cases in the background, just through your own emotion or standing on the topic at hand.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a weird one that oftentimes runs on autopilot,
Yeah.
unless you're those few that have just cultivated it. That, I mean, you could you could cut through the faith with a butter knife through open air. Like, it's that thick.
Fair enough. Immortal.
No, I think we pretty much covered it all for tonight. But I definitely think we need to make another video, because there's so much more that we can go into with this.
There is. There is. I'm actually glad that you all suggested this topic because it's like it's always been in the back of my brain, but I never thought of doing a roundtable or anything on it. And we decided to do it. And I'll admit, coming into this, and I was a little worried because I was like, are we actually going to have anything to say?
I had the same problem.
We
And
have, it looks like about 4 videos worth of more to say.
right. And that's fast. That's awesome to me because there are so many people that have these questions. And honestly, I've worked with a lot of people that's had the same identity crisis or crisis of practice and faith that Squirrel had. Where they
Going
think
through, it's not just had, it's still.
and you can blend the two very easily. And if anyone is having that struggle, do feel free to email me. I'll give you what information I can or something, help you out where I can. Hey, we may do a straight video on just that. Any closing thoughts? Immortal, we'll start with you.
I think that everybody could apply faith into something and make it work, whether it's Call of Duty, whether it's traffic, or whether it's just that you're gonna come home and you're gonna be happy that you're home. If you really put enough faith into that, you can manifest what you like.
Oh, you know what? That actually, okay, before we close, that did give me something. Because this has come up a time or two, but we've not actually said it. Could your faith manifest just the negative, shitty life? Like if you're just so certain you're a shit person, your life is crap, you can't change it. This is your lot. Woe is me, boo hoo hoo. We often call it self-cursing, but one could say you're 100% faithful in the fact that tomorrow sucks, your life sucks, and you're just going to continue that pattern.
Yep. Yeah, because that basically is a branch of faith magic, those thought forms of self-cursing. That absolutely is. And that person's, it's not even a lack of will. The person's continuing to hold on to that.
Yeah.
Just fuels it more.
Unknowingly, yeah.
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 That's
because the original topic that we put in our like roundtable topics ideas was faith magic and learning to let go.
That's
so
true.
That right there.
It is because not only
I did add that to the notes underneath that section.
Jesus take the wheel, whatever, take the wheel. Which is good because it's like I've hit my personal limit. I need assistance. But then there's also, you can hang on to the anger, you can hang on to the self-loathing, you can hang on to this, or you can toss it to the side and move on.
Yeah, because not all faith is, like we said earlier, not all faith is positive.
So
so
itself, I think
sometimes
an entire new topic. That make a note of that one too, Squirrel, because that's a good one. Thank you for that.
Sometimes you got to know when to cut off.
Yeah, sometimes you got to know when to just enough is enough. So, all right. Crap. Any closing thoughts, Born? No, I kind of derailed us a little.
Yeah, sorry, just processing that. Honestly, take a look at your situation, your life, where you do put trust in something, whether that be information, people, specific entities, a circumstance. See where you're already doing it, and with what we just mentioned, see if it helps, if it's actually a thing that's worth holding on to, or in some other aspects, if there's an area where you could be applying that more. Explore around.
Okay. And Squirrel.
A couple of different thoughts. The fact that you can still blend your faith to your arcane magic. It takes some shadow work and some working, but you can do it. And also, there's a good reason Tinkerbell works on Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust. You gotta have all three, buddies. I'm gonna get my wings.
Did not see
Last
that
thing
one
we need
coming.
is you with wings.
And I was watching. I had to wait till you were taking a sip because I knew it was coming. I didn't get you to spit, but I was so close. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it one of these rounds. That's why I don't show up as much anymore because I will cause trouble.
Yeah, the thought of you with wings, that is troubling. Okay, everyone.
Someone's house.
This has been a lot of fun. And I look
Mhm.
forward to the next one. But yeah, thank everyone for coming. Squirrel, it was nice to see you on here again. It's been a while since we got you at a round table. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you're looking for content from us, you can check us out at workingdragonmystic.com. It is now officially a one-stop shop for everything Working Dragon Mystic. You can find the YouTube channel there. You can find our Rumble, which allows us to put stuff up YouTube won't let us, as well as our new Working Dragon Mystic Layer community, where you can come in, you can join. And again, they let us post stuff. YouTube won't let us. Patreon won't let us.
Yeah.
So all those questions and comments and things you guys have wanted us to talk about that we've not been able to talk about, we can now talk about them. So check it out. And we actually have the Gilded link on that site as well. So literally, we are one stop for everything Working Dragon Mystic on that website now. One internet address to rule them all.
One address to find.
So check us out and definitely join the community because we are working on building that up. We are even going to have live classes and workshops free to all supporters of the community. How about that? All right. I guess that's a good night, is it? Everybody going to run off and get their night going?
I guess so.
Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.